City of Stevens Point Finance Committee meeting, recorded October 15, 2025.
(7:17). We'll call a meeting of the Finance Committee to order. Please take roll.
Christensen.
Here.
Morrow.
Aye.
Shuda.
Here.
Keemer. Here. Broderick. Here.
Okay, thank you. Something new on tonight's agenda, Chairperson's opening remarks, and I just wanted, it's going to be fairly brief. One of the things I was going to include was actually the third item on the agenda, but we already have that as a separate thing. I think one of the things that we always have to be mindful of is that one of our primary responsibilities as a city council is to be good stewards of the taxpayer dollars. And that's a responsibility I take very seriously. We do know that we're dealing with some very challenging budgets. We know that situation isn't going to change much. I think one of the obligations we have as a council is to really do a good job of taking a look, not just at our immediate expenditures, but also at our long-range obligations and needs. And some of the items on tonight's agenda actually are targeted towards those and trying to create and get good, accurate information so we can make good, responsible decisions on those types of things long-range. Finance isn't an item-by-item necessarily, because we have to always keep in mind the big picture. Every decision we make impacts our ability to make other decisions. So I think keeping that in mind is probably very important. We have to always keep in mind our pie is only so big, and each slice we have to make sure it's well used, and when the pie is gone, there's no other slices to be done. So we can't just wing it and go item by item and hope that there's stuff there at the end. We have to start, I think, being maybe more strategic. Talking with Emily Berge when she was here last month, she mentioned their monthly meetings that aren't actions, but it's basically spent taking a look at big picture type discussions, and it's just a discussion, never any action items, but they choose different topics and they work that way. That's something that I would like us to also take a look at and consider at some point in the future. I think bottom line, you take a look at the big picture, you take a look at all the possible needs and make sure that we allocate our resources appropriately, because they are valuable. That's it. My other thing was just going to be item number 3, reminder of the annual operating budget meeting. For all that are here and for people that are listening online, and hopefully some of those that watch the recording, our budgets are major issues, and it's kind of frustrating when we have great turnout for other meetings and other items, and when we're taking a look at those really major items. We've had a budget hearing, Mayor, what was it last month, or last year, 2, 3 in the audience, or if any. So I would encourage you, play an active role. Be here, pay attention, and provide input. That's why we have these meetings. That being said, we're now to the discussion and possible action item or portion of our agenda. Item number 4 is to award the Plover River Crossing Project to Highway Landscapers Incorporated in the amount of $1,796,643.43. Director Kramer.
I don't have a lot to add. The memo outlines it. We did have significant interest in this project from a bidder standpoint, so you'll see we had 7 bids. They were incredibly competitive. There's a bunch of grant regulations that we have to review. All of that's been taking place. I just would close, obviously recommending award here, but this is really a culmination of almost 5.5 years of work, both from volunteers, both in the city and outside the city, our friends at Plover River Crossing Fundraising Committee, obviously City Council, Finance Committee, Park Commission, countless donors, and all of the kind of community buy-in to this project. So super happy to be here today and just say I recommend that we would award this, and certainly ask for a special council meeting because we have a 6-month lead time. With the holiday, we ended up being pretty close to council. So, but our hope is if this gets approved here tonight, we'll sign contracts right away tomorrow, and then we hope to cut a ribbon on this by September 1st of 2026.
Nice. Any questions from the committee? If not, a motion would be in order.
I'll move approval.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Alder Keemer. Is there a second?
I'll second.
A second by Alder Broderick. Any other discussion? Anything from the public? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed would be no. And that passes unanimously. And congratulations to all those that work so diligently. That's a huge project, and I think is going to be an incredible asset to our community, so thank you. Item number 5, consideration of claim, Daniel Morey, vehicle struck by ball.
Hello, everyone. Thank you.
Please state your name, too, please.
Yes, it's Danielle Morey. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm here, just wanted to bring to the attention of the Finance Committee just an unfortunate incident that I had driving along Main Street. This was in June. Basically, what ended up happening was a Plover fast pitch game was going on, and a ball struck my vehicle. So ultimately, all I'm looking for today is coverage for that. I have been kind of down the alley of avenues to figure out where to go, and I was referred to the city and the Parks Department. I guess the net cost is $2,103.63. And if this is sufficient in fixing the damage, that's really all I'm requesting. I understand that it is kind of nuanced in the entity and the body that takes responsibility. I'm not really exactly sure, but I do believe it is, from what I've learned, that it corresponds to the city or the parks in terms of taking responsibility for this cost. And I would say, on a more conversational note, that in addition, and perhaps more importantly, the city, I feel, kind of has some sort of burden to provide a different solution in terms of protecting people, passerbys, from these balls that are coming. I mean, it's pretty significant damage just striking my vehicle. So in terms of like bikers and walkers and anyone that is in this area during the summer, it could be, devastating. So that's what I'm here for.
Okay, thank you. Comptroller, do you want to speak to this, please?
So we did submit it to our insurance company, as we do with all of our liability claims, and the recommendation is to deny. Basically, they've determined that the city doesn't have any liability for this incident. And one of the things to note is that one of the things that makes it difficult is that it's unknown who hit the softball that struck her vehicle. And if there is any liability, it really, according to our insurance company, it really is more with the person who actually hit the ball as opposed to being with the city. The other aspect to note is that we do have discretionary immunity. So, certainly I think there are some things that could be considered in terms of if we put a net up or if we take some of those measures, but of course that's a capital expense, and that's something that we have discretionary immunity for those decisions on whether or not to make that capital expense of putting a net up.
So I do have, not to interrupt, but I do have some of those measures in terms of, I did do some homework on what best practices are in terms of, backstop heights. And I also am a proud, Stevens Point, I've lived here my whole life pretty much, and I've been paying taxes in this city for 16 years, and I'm proud of that. So I think that's important to, clarify and say. But I mean, I did reach out to USA Softball just to get an understanding of what is a standard, I mean, what is a minimum recommendation. And the recommendation is for best practice is 14 feet. And I did go to Gerke and I measured it. It's 11 feet and 6 inches. And Chelsea at USA Softball said 14 feet is considered the minimum for effective protection of players, fans, and equipment. 20 plus feet is strongly recommended for fast pitch softball, since foul balls travel sharply behind the plate. So in addition to that, I think that those are like concrete things that support just perhaps a more protection being considered in this location, given its proximity to people. And it's Main Street, you know what I mean? So we have Clark Street, Main Street. It's also the other thing, you're a little bit trapped when you're at the lights. You're sitting there. We were at a red light, me and my mom, going to her birthday dinner, and we weren't able to move, you know what I mean? You're not able to just drift past there if you're caught at the wrong time. So we were just kind of sitting ducks in terms of you're just vulnerable to whatever's happening. So that's a point. Yeah, sorry.
Okay. All right. Prior to discussion, I guess we'll have a motion. We need a motion so we could carry on further discussion. Is there a motion from the committee? What are your wishes?
Motion to, from what Corey was saying, motion to deny the claim.
Okay, we have a motion to deny. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second. Okay, we can have some further discussion. Is there any other questions from the committee?
You were at the stoplight by PJ's, that corner,
Yes, sir.
and you got hit by a foul ball at Gerke.
Yes.
Long foul ball.
Gerke Ballpark right next to the street.
I think what she means is that she was in queue in traffic
Right.
at the red light, not the car at the red light, but several cars
Well, no,
back.
there is like directly like 4 paces away from, PJ Jacobs, there's a ball diamond. So there's like, you're directly parallel with it.
On the street.
Yes. I mean, you're very close. So, I mean, it's very reasonable to, consider what the protection is. There is no net. So if you're walking and you get hit by a ball, the damages could be severe for someone.
So was your car moving or just at rest?
It was at rest and then moving, and we were halfway up behind. I mean, it was bizarre that ball was, you know what I mean, pelting at that much of a rate. And I don't know if any of you can see in front of you what my image is, but those kind of hit home, not to be punny, but as to the damages that they can inflict on a vehicle. So knowing that, I mean, I work at PJ's, so it's also like, oh my goodness, I know that kids are out there during the weekend and they are traveling around, and it's a public road, you know what I mean? So there's a certain level of protection that is deserved by the community, and I think that, I think that's a reasonable request, especially given the fact that we're very low. And I mean, even if you look at other parks, Morton Park, what is the other park that we have? Mead Park has 14 feet tall, but they're not anywhere near a major road, right? Texas Park, 9 feet. They're also not anything major. Let's see, and Gerke is, unfortunately, and I don't really understand why that would be at, such a small 14 feet 6 inches. Especially the level of play is another consideration. These girls are in high school. They're running from 6 to 18, and fast pitch is very competitive. So the balls, we know. In addition to that, I did talk to Archie, the leader of the organization, who said that this is something that has been foreseeable. This is something that the organization knows happens, and I think that at a minimum, a sign could be useful. I can make one. They're free, right? I mean, what do we need to inform the community? Because if I'm informed and there's a sign, let's say, what is that road, Minnesota, that if there's a sign there that says ball in play or game in play, I have the option then to take the brand new vehicle I bought or whatever vehicle you have and go a different route. You know what I mean? At least providing options, I think, is absolutely reasonable.
I can also share. I played fast pitch and AA fast. I batted against guys that threw in the Olympics. I mean, I played fast pitch and had a vehicle get hit.
Right.
It happens. Fast pitch, the ball is moving fast. That's why they call
Right.
it fast pitch.
Yes.
It's nearly, unless you play in a dome, it's going to be impossible to prevent any ball from leaving the playing field.
But we're not meeting like
No,
minimum standards here in this
Well,
case.
they're not minimum standards, those are recommendations.
They're recommendations and best practices, yes, and we're well below those. But for this area and for the community, though, it's kind of a different sort of conversation. I'm here for myself, yes. I would love to be awarded the amount of money that I feel is, not damage, just to cover this cost. But also, I'm here on part of the community as well that I feel like is not getting a level of protection that they deserve.
Okay. Director Kramer, I saw you stand. Could we get your input, please?
Yeah.
I don't have a ton to say here other than there's a lot of things that have just been brought up that aren't necessarily before us here tonight in terms of best practices or facility design, as well as liability, what happened, what didn't happen. I don't dispute anything that's being discussed, but I would tell you that in all of these cases, because they're highly complex and there's a lot of layers of who can be involved, we do have to rely on basically our insurance provider and what our city attorney and our insurance company has reviewed. That ball diamond, as well as all of our ball diamonds, predates a lot of the what I would call the best design standards that you would pick from a brand new facility. We do have master plans in Gerke Park, which will be coming before the council soon, that talks about future best practices as we do facility upgrades, which is something that we do when we do new construction. So I just want to mention to the committee, I think we would be entering a much more detailed depth than what this discussion would be appropriate if we talked about exact heights, reviewing all those things, and that's not really what's before us here this evening.
Right.
Really, we're in a place where, with this insurance claim, I would just ask the committee to kind of stick to what our professional resources kind of told us, and we can go into further conversations if we need to from there in kind of a separate location or appropriate area if we could.
When well taken. All right. I think,
Can I ask one more question about this? Just because I'm still not sure I understand. He mentioned Dan?
Danielle?
Dan, yeah.
But we don't get it back and forth and question back and
Oh,
forth.
okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
We do want to make sure you've had the opportunity to present your point of view, and I think we understand your viewpoint.
Okay,
Okay?
all right.
But thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Any comments from the committee? Otherwise, we do have a motion before us to deny, a motion and a second. All in favor of denying that claim would signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed would be no. And so the claim is denied. Next item on our agenda, approval of the 2026 budget. Comptroller.
Yes, so the capital budget was presented last month at Finance, and this is just bringing it back for approval. The only change that has been made or suggested since we originally presented it is we found out that the money that we budgeted for a facilities study, we budgeted $50,000 for that in the 2025 capital budget. We found out $50,000 might not be sufficient. I was told that a more realistic number might be $125,000. So we did add $75,000 in to add to that 50 for facility study so that we'd have $125,000 to complete the facility study. But other than that, there haven't been any other changes to what's before you.
Okay. To begin discussion, we should have a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Alder Morrow. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Alder Keemer. Comments, questions from the committee?
Regarding the 125, 50 from last year and another 75, my feeling is that's quite high. I don't deal with these people every day, but I would rather see 50 from last year and 40 from this year and make it 90. And if we can't get a decent facility study for our long-term planning to alter people for that amount, maybe we shouldn't do it at all.
Okay. Any other?
Other comments? I think that's something that's been way overdue. We haven't done this since I've been here that I could recall. Something that we could get the best price for, of course, but as our Parks Director said, like some of our facilities are outdated and so on, and no idea what the best practices are, what the standards are. And again, I understand you can't always update things when you need, because I know like our pool is 33 and a half yards long. Who builds a 33 and a half yard pool? But just seeing what we have and what we needed to try to prioritize and so on. But I also agree with Alder Shuda. That does seem kind of high.
Yeah. I guess, and I agree with both of you. I think 125 is, because we've done some of the preliminary groundwork, I don't think that 125 I would be more comfortable, and so I can see that point too. But to Alder Morrow's comments, I think that harkens right back to my opening remarks. I think that will help us get that big picture, and so we can take a look at all needs and make sure that we allocate things appropriately. So I like that as well. Any other comments from?
I would say I think that although it is going to be more expensive than we originally thought, I think it is worth budgeting the full amount. It seems like the kind of thing that sort of has a cost floor, right? Or if we say we only want to spend 100 and it ends up being 120, the 100 doesn't get us anything, right? It is sort of it's not the sort of service I feel like we can really cut down so much if we are thinking 125 is the reasonable estimate. I think we move forward with this, especially knowing that we did spend quite a bit of time with department heads collecting that information. I think we have a really good idea of what we're looking for with this study. Certainly grateful to everyone who put in all of that work to get us all of that information internally. I think at this point it is right to look externally for the rest of that information. I think it is worth budgeting for that full amount.
With that being said, I understand that, and the directors did do a lot of work on that, and I'm just wondering if we just give a firm up to $125,000 and they're going to give us what they want, I'm wondering if we shouldn't specifically ask for what we're really looking for and maybe narrow it down a little bit based on what knowledge we already have, and then say this is what we want. That way, maybe curtailing the price tag a little bit. Does that make any sense?
I can understand that, but I also think part of it is it's so overdue that, I mean, I can see it. And maybe the mid-ground position is to budget the entire amount, but just with the directive to try to keep it below if possible. Then they have the flexibility if the need's there, but if it's not, they know we've voiced our preference.
But should we also then have some sort of qualifications or whatever that we're telling them what we're looking for?
Absolutely.
So that they don't give us 80% of what we're not looking for. Is that?
Absolutely, and I think that would be a good discussion to have. I think that would be a good agenda item to have for the council as a whole. Provide that direction to the director so they know exactly what our expectations are of that. Okay. Anything else from the committee? Okay. If not, Mr. Mayor?
So what I was going to suggest is, one, it may not happen, but generally if you approve $125,000 and you go for bids, it's going to be $124.99. But putting the money in to get what you need done is important. What I was going to suggest is doing it as a council, with council as a whole, or creating a subcommittee to outline the scope of work that you expect from this study, because study is relatively broad.
Right.
And determining specifically what you want is going to be critical to finding the people that do it. So whether it's the council as a whole, or I would suggest a subcommittee, they still are subject to all of the open meetings and quorums and things like that. But getting that subcommittee together to have those discussions and outline the scope of work, so then our directors can go out to bid with that scope of work specifically outlined by the group.
Committee, what are your thoughts?
All right, we got 2 minutes yet, so. Mr. Chairman, in 2 minutes, we must recess, have our common council
Right.
meeting, because it's at 7:45.
Right,
And then
we've
we can
got that
reconvene
Yep.
and finish. But we got 2 minutes.
Yeah, let's go ahead and adjourn, and then maybe we can have the directors.
adjourn.
I mean, just
Recess.
recess, yes. Recess so we can call the
Pick up the discussion.
special committee, and then we'll pick up this discussion, and maybe we'll be able to get some input from the directors on the subcommittee idea. I think that would be helpful, too. Okay? All right, so I would recess this until after our special city council meeting is adjourned. Time is 7:52. We'll reconvene the Finance Committee. Prior to our having to recess for our special council meeting, we were discussing the item number 6, the approval of a 2026 budget.
So we have to have it open.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then I'll just ask them to be quiet.
Yeah.
Ask it, especially Mary Kneebone, gee. All right. We left off, we were discussing the possibility, and we were discussing the item for, the budget item for the facility study. There hasn't been any, there's a motion that's been made, there's been amendment that was talked about but not put forward. A suggestion was made by the mayor to potentially create a subcommittee to work with the directors, be able to define exactly what it is that we expect to see from that and make sure that our needs are being met. I do think this will be the first time in a long time that we will have a comprehensive view of our facilities, trying to get a grip of exactly what needs those have, which ones are utilized, which ones maybe can be repurposed, which ones are going to require some significant capital expenses in a short amount of time. I do think this is going to enable the council to do a better job of what we're tasked to do. That is one of our major things, and I think we can do a better job of that long-range planning if we have that information. Do we have any of the directors that would like to speak to? It's primarily, for that, it would, according to state statute, Public Works Director is actually the director that's in charge of facilities. Is Director Badoon in the overflow? Sam, would you take a peek out the door?
I know this is something the alders have asked for
Yes.
for a while.
It will enable us to do our job and fulfill our responsibilities.
He's on his way.
Okay. Excellent. Please come to the podium. We have a question for you. We're looking at the facility study, and the mayor suggested that we create a subcommittee to work with you and kind of help flesh out exactly what our expectations are. We're considering keeping it at 125 with the hope of keeping it lower, and would trust you to work with them to be able to do that to every extent possible. How would you feel about working with the subcommittee? Is that a workable format for you?
Yes, definitely workable. The other alternative I'd have to that is just if we have whatever funding level, just bring those proposals to get. The idea is we just try to get several proposals, have them come present, you fully understand what it is that they otherwise want to. We'll see what it is. We'll try to keep the budget components out of it, and then let, this committee weigh in on whether it is meeting your expectations.
I think what we'd
Either way.
like to do, though, is make sure we have a standard set of expectations, so we make sure that the proposals that we're getting, we're able to compare apples to apples, and they're all basically looking at accomplishing the same tasks. So I think what I'll do is I'll ask the mayor to put that creation of that subcommittee on our agenda for next week. And with that, Alder Guthrie, you've been standing. I would like that you
I have a comment about the capital budget. Scott, don't go far. But it's not about the facility study, so I'm hovering to.
Okay.
Yes.
We'll get to the rest of it in just a second. Committee, how do you feel about that item? I guess Alder Schutter, you specifically, because you're the one that expressed the concern. Would you be comfortable with that?
With the
Moving
subcommittee?
forward with the subcommittee and.
Yes, I think
Okay.
that's one great idea.
Okay. So we'll have that, I'll ask the mayor to put that on, and we'll keep that portion on the budget then. Any other items on the budget that the committee would like to discuss?
I have a question.
Okay.
It's a specific question. I apologize for not forwarding it your way
okay.
prior to the meeting. But I had brought up those server hardware upgrade at our last discussion, wondering if there would be any way we could get some more funding to complete that, since that's all hitting end of life. I see that there is additional funding now to cover that, but I didn't see if there was a note there from where that extra funding came from.
Yeah, so I believe that the servers are shared, so it's a server that I believe is in the police department, but it doesn't just serve the police department, it serves citywide.
Okay.
So part of who that services is also the utilities, so that other 30,000 would be coming from the utilities. So basically it'd be 47,000 that would be the city share that comes out of the city capital budget, and then 30,000 out of the enterprises.
Excellent. Appreciate the clarification. Totally makes sense, and the flexibility in trying to squeeze that in for 26.
Alder Guthrie, do you want to bring up your concern?
Thank you so much, Chair. So last month, I asked if I was missing a streets garage on the capital budget long-term planning worksheet, and I was told, nope, you're not missing that. It's not there. My inferred question that I'll ask directly now is, how come? Because it's my understanding that we desperately need a solution for the streets department, and I'm feeling confused about it not being on our capital budget plan for the short term. And I'm wondering, I've heard about lots of different options for that, both location and size, new versus used, and I'm just confused and surprised that a proposal isn't included either for right now or for the near future. And so I wonder if there's any staff that could speak to the current landscape of need to get us all in the same place, and when it should be proposed. If not right now, when can we expect to see it on the worksheet? I hope that question makes sense.
Director Badun, do you want to speak to that?
I can speak a little bit to it, but let me know if I'm somehow not hitting the nail on the head. The need is, of course, definitely there. The building isn't getting any better. It's not getting any newer. It has a lot of needs. Just about every aspect of the building is in need of something, from the fence on the outside to the building itself, the HVAC, it needs new windows. We've replaced several of the doors. There's a lot that otherwise needed. I think the issue, of course, has always been the cost. How do we get it in there? City Hall's come up. There are other things, and somewhat forcing that issue that maybe are even beyond the city. We have been looking at other alternatives. So one of which is one of the old Journal buildings on Pat Street owned by Tom Ludwig, which we understand is for sale. We have toured that. We've done a little bit of looking at the floor plan to see how would others work. And a cursory review of it, it seems that was some, I call them relatively minor, but I don't have an actual cost or anything associated with it. Haven't gotten that far, which I hope maybe we could use some facility studies monies towards to see what that might have do to remodel that office space, which seems to be adequate in size, just not how everything is broken up to that. The remainder of the building seems to be adequate to store what it is I feel would be necessary to get there. First, off we have 13 plow trucks that sit summer this month. They're just finally getting moved inside as they're getting tuned up. But there's well over $1 million worth of equipment sitting outside, and there's other things. And it does appear that there would be room under roof to put that. We would need to put a garage door to get that equipment in there. So, from my perspective, it meets the minimum requirements for now to get there. That's something we otherwise have looked at. We've actually talked to the owner of Metalcrafters there. He's willing to talk a sale of his property if that would work into that. The location is, quite honestly, very centralized located, easy access to everything, especially with new signals. At Hoover and Industrial Park, we could get where we needed to get to within the city very well. I don't think, as we were looking over on the east side, that neighbors would be any issue in that respect. That's as far as we've otherwise gotten with that, and I think we were just interrupted with City Hall. Although I would argue that the conversation should be inclusive of everything to get there. But I think it's just taken a back seat to that, unfortunately.
If I would ask, and I hate to put you on the spot, but we are approving a capital budget tonight, but we have another week before council. Is there work that could be done to propose essentially a purchase or to approve a purchase amount so that you and the controller have some time before council to, if we want to move on a building that's a solution for this, I would love to see us at least consider and debate whether or not we should work towards an existing building purchase, since the other pie in the sky option is quite expensive, and understandably alongside City Hall, seems unrealistic in the medium term, and so that leaves us without a solution. I would love to see us entertain this if the staff and the comptroller are willing to consider putting this forward, and we might consider a vote before for next week. Reasonably, I wouldn't expect you to have a price or an amount here tonight.
Yeah, my thought would be, I think there's obviously some work that would need to be done. One would be negotiating an acquisition price, and that, you're probably talking about a closed session to negotiate the purchase of a property and what they're asking and what we're willing to spend. So I think there's probably a couple of steps that would need to happen to get this to where it's ready to have something done with it. But the other thing that I would say is we can always amend a capital budget as well. So, I'm not sure that we're going to have a
price in a week.
Yeah. Unless
Right.
Scott.
No, we wouldn't, because I think we're at the point where we've looked at it internally. It seems like it makes sense. It checks the boxes as best as we can, but we're not the experts in it. We don't know if we start to change some of the office space around, how will the HVAC work? Where are all the lights? What would otherwise need to be changed to get it to truly be functional to get there, and what those costs otherwise might be. And the garage space, how do we otherwise work with that? And just to check, of course, some of the other basic things out that we would otherwise want to know. That's where we then need to step it up and go to outside sources to do it, similar to what was done with 1039 Ellis. We need someone to walk through it and give us an opinion of what that would otherwise take.
I think it's important to note that the capital budget can be amended. And so, you do want to get a good idea of where you're at and moving forward and stuff, but it isn't written in stone. That actually brings to mind another issue that I'm worried that we're moving a little prematurely on. I'm a little concerned about budgeting $9 million for the city hall when we still don't have a finalized plan. We don't know what our ultimate cost is going to be. We have a preliminary cost estimate based on bubble drawings. And that preliminary estimate was somewhere in that $17-18 million. If all of a sudden that comes in at $22 million, then that, I think, would require us to take a second look. I think I'm in favor of moving forward with that project, getting that final, a more complete plan worked on, and so I don't want to see things delayed, but I think to include it as part of this capital budget is premature, because we don't have normally we would split the cost over 2 years, and one of them would come out of next year's budget, the second part, because it's not going to be finished this next year. The other half would probably come out of capital 2027. But we don't know what that half is. We're guessing. And my gut feeling is we're low. And so, I'm not against the city hall if it comes in at that $17 million or 17 point, I can't remember what the exact number was.
17.4.
17.4. If it comes in at that, I'm fine with that. If it comes in at 22, then I think maybe we have to reassess. So I think I would be more comfortable, because we can amend it at any time. Once we get that firm, more of a firm estimate, then we can, I think, make an informed decision and not base it on a hypothetical. So that would be my one thought, but.
Very prudent thought. I mean, I wouldn't build a house giving them 2/3 of the money and then get the architectural draw, and everything else changes.
I think it's premature. Okay. Anyone else have any thoughts?
Well, I am familiar with Mr. Ludwood's building. I think I didn't even think about it until Scott brought that up. But I mean, it's a great little location. It's a solid building as well. If that would work out, that would be great. It'd be better than the $50 million that we got for the other one the other study that we did, and not add to another trophy case of plans and studies and so on.
I think too the subcommittee, as we're taking a look at the facilities things, I think this is the beginning of a longer process. Once we get that facility study and we take a look at all the needs, I think we're going to be able to prioritize and look at those capital needs. I can point to a number of other projects before, and that's why I want to make sure we don't go over 17, because if we end up at 22, that's going to delay that being happening and all the other things happening as well that I think are also very important for the vitality of this city. So, Director Badun.
If I might, just to clarify that. So if we're looking at that Tom Ludwig building, it says would not be all inclusive of what we would ultimately have.
No.
It would just be, so that would be the first step towards getting there, which in the context of facilities and City Hall could potentially mean that engineering could move to there. We'd no longer be storing very expensive equipment outside seasonally. Things would be undercover, or otherwise it would be more easy to take care of, and the costs otherwise associated with outside, so the mice, the sun, everything else, going to come to play, to then eventually formulating the plan to build that area out to what we would otherwise be, while trying to include as much of the existing facilities, such as metal crafters next to it, the brewery's warehouse potentially. However, we would have to work a plan in there, but using those existing buildings at a much reduced cost versus building new.
I was not implying that was going to be the
I just more so for the, if we could do that, but more so for the public. If someone other than the public is wondering, oh my gosh, really, they can buy that building and they're done. I just want to make sure that anyone's wishing that's not otherwise the case. But it would probably get us a period of time, and it gets us much closer to ultimately where I think we need to be. If like I said, there's more work to be done, but if that works out, it could be a very big stepping stone towards our ultimate goal there.
All right, thank you, Scott. Any other items on the agenda that you feel need to be addressed?
I just
Alder
had some clarifying questions, and I really appreciate the other fund source column. I think we had that last year too, but that is really helpful and nice to see. I guess one thing I expected to have other fund sources, and maybe they're built in, is with the Department of Public Works with the road reconstruction projects. I mean, my understanding is a good portion of that is utilities. So when we're looking at the amount recommended, is that including the utilities portion, or is that just the Public Works portion?
That would just be the Public Works portion or the
Okay.
city portion.
Okay, very good.
Okay. Any other comments from the public? Committee, what are your wishes?
Move approval of the
Well, we had a
We have a
motion.
Oh, we have a motion.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess,
Do you want to reread the motion to make sure?
no, I don't have it. I guess I would offer an amendment to pull the 9 million of funding for the city hall until we have more concrete idea of what the actual cost estimate will be. Because if that total cost estimate comes in too high, and we've already started and spent a good portion of that, then I think limits possibilities. So I would suggest that as an amendment.
Just clarifying, I think, I mean, because we just stated 5 minutes ago that it's movable, it's, the
Right,
capital
and
is.
that's why we would move it for right now, and then once we get the actual number of what 50% of what the estimate is, then we could add that back in. Yeah, it's not denying it, it's just postponing until we have an actual concrete figure, something more, because right now, we're basing it on an estimate of a bubble drawing.
Is there,
And-
go ahead.
Just clarifying that, and that's fine with the Comptroller Treasurer's Department?
Yeah, that works. You know, at least from my perspective, we can certainly add that back in later in terms of amending the capital budget to increase the capital budget to put that $9 million back in once we get a design and an estimate that's a little bit more firm.
And I do want to keep moving, I mean, I do know that the county
Is moving.
is in a hurry, and I don't want to slow down the process at all. I want the process, the planning and everything to keep moving forward, but I just want to wait for the actual budgeting until we see what the actual number is, because right now, we're putting $9 million towards, and we don't know if it's a $17 million project or a $23 million project, because we don't have a firm number. So I just think it's premature. Keep moving ahead with all the planning, don't slow down at all, keep the process moving, but wait for the budgeting until we get the actual, a more accurate estimate.
I'm wondering if maybe you can clarify what the benefit of that approach would be. If we have a
Sure.
hypothetical where we end up spending 23 million, is it not better to budget 9 and then amend in
Right.
a few extra million versus
back.
not having anything in our formal budget? It seems like a
Because-
very significant amendment.
If it comes in at 23 million or 24 million, we might want to take a look at it. Then maybe we go back and revisit renovation, maybe we take a look at another option. If it comes in at 25 million, I think we need to do our due diligence, and I don't think we have enough information at this point to make that informed decision. Alder Morrow.
I would think that, like, I mean, if we decide with whatever option, we'd still be spending the $9 million, and we're not going to spend the $9 million if it comes in at 25 million anyway. So it's like, we're not going to give them the money before we actually see the plans and start, and I think we should, I mean, because as you said, I mean, this is going to take over more than a few budgets to pay for.
Okay, hypothetically, if we allocate the 9 million, they can start demolition tomorrow. 9 million can go towards the demolition. That takes renovation off the plate.
But
So I don't think we want to start on that part of the process until we know with certainty that that's the route we want to go.
Has the council not taken formal
Yeah,
action
we would
on it?
have to.
The council's only action to this point was a discussion, without even action being taken, that the new, what we did choose to pursue the new, but there hasn't been any action. The only contracts that have been allocated is one for Stantec to take a look at the brownfield site, and one from Somerville for the actual design.
But council would still approve if we would, okay, once we have the plan.
And we're still moving ahead with that.
Right.
But I don't want to all of a sudden be surprised by a $26 million price tag, and we've already tore down the building.
Thank you, Chair. I guess my question for the comptroller is, how would that affect our borrowing or our borrowing timeline?
Sure.
At all?
So typically, we don't borrow toward the end of the year. Now, next year, we might have to borrow a little bit earlier in the year. So, but I wouldn't expect it to affect our borrowing timeline as long as we can make a decision before, say, June. You know, because I wouldn't expect that we would be borrowing our money before June of 2026.
And it's not going to slow down the process. We're going to keep moving ahead on all the planning and everything, but we'll make sure that we'll have a much more accurate estimate before we commit.
I guess I would put forth, if the concern is that we might, as you said, start demolition tomorrow, I would think that the council would probably need to provide formal action for that to occur, more importantly than we would need to amend the budget.
Once the 9 million is allocated, then it's a day-to-day decision, and that's staff decision. That's not council decision. We would not have to approve that.
I'm concerned about the possible complications of fully removing it from our budget when we do expect that there would be a significant expense of some kind related to City Hall in 2026.
And we can put, as soon as we know what that number is, we can put that in. We can amend the budget at any point in time.
I think that, well, my opinion for the committee is that I think that the intent of the capital budget is to showcase a reasonable expectation of what we will likely be spending. And I think at this point, we don't have enough reason to think that that half is not going to be there at all. I think the better route would be to put forth an amendment should we decide later in the game that our strategy will change. I don't know.
And then if demolition begins tomorrow, what happens?
I guess I wish we had some counsel tonight to speak to the extent to which that is truly a possibility. It seems.
No.
Go ahead.
Corey, once money is approved in a budget, if it's already approved by council has taken their action, then it's up to staff to determine how to spend it, right? It's no additional dollars. It's money that's already in the budget, and then it becomes a day-to-day decision that staff makes. And is that accurate or not? Corey?
So typically, once we approve the capital budget, you know, just from a financial aspect, we've typically told them that they can move forward with their capital project in terms of whether that's ordering something for it, whether that's, you know, doing something that's related to that capital project, making commitments, signing contracts. Now, as far as whether a demolition needs to be approved by the council or not, as far as demolishing a city building, you know, as far as if there's a legal requirement there, that I would defer to the city attorney on that, and I understand he's not here. He's not here today.
Okay.
But, so I would defer that decision to the city attorney, but in terms of financially, if a department had asked me, the capital budget's been approved, we were approved for a dump truck, can we order the dump truck? I would tell them, yes, you can order the dump truck because the capital budget's been approved.
Right. Dr. Kramer.
I just want to mention, I stepped in the overflow room and just asked, we are under contract for new design, so I think they're underway in that process, so I just want to make sure.
Right, no, absolutely, and I still want that to keep moving forward.
Sure, I just want to make sure.
After that design is finalized, then we'll be able to get an estimate that's going to be much more accurate.
Yeah, the only reason I mention it is if you did a new design, it'd be a pretty massive pivot later on to stop and say, throw that away and we're going to remodel. That's why I mentioned it. So.
But if it ends up at $25 million, the money spent on redesign. The other thing that comes that relates to the earlier discussion that was brought up for the engineering department, engineering is 25% of the staff. If you go that route, then why we're already, by building that building, creating empty space in this building, having additional thousands of square feet of vacancy, we'll be designing a building that may be 25% larger than it needs to be. So I think, I want them to move ahead, but I think I don't know that we're in a position to necessarily make that level of commitment. I want to make sure, I think it's more important to make, and I don't want to slow down the design process, because that's what comes out of that design process is going to guide our next decision. If that design process comes in and meets all of our needs and is able to stay at that $17 million mark, I'm 100% behind it. But if it all of a sudden comes in at 25, I'm not comfortable with that. And I just think it's just prudent having accurate information before we make a multi-million dollar decision. I want to make sure, as a good steward of taxpayer dollars, that we do our due diligence. And so keep moving ahead with the design process, keep that going, get the design, get the estimates, and if it comes in, and I hope it does, and then we move forward, and we've lost no time, because they're still going to be doing what it is we need to have done. Director Kivala.
Yeah, I just want to make the comment, I guess question to Corey. Of course, we are going through the design. We do have the Stantec contract. We do have a few other processes that we need to go through. So we obviously need capital to work through the process. I guess obviously towards a new build. If we did go back to the renovation, obviously there's a whole slew of other things that would need to be reapproved and re-looked at and reevaluated. So I mean, that's a whole different topic. But if we get to that route, but I guess I want to make sure we do have enough funds to accurately go through the process and proceed with the build new option as we have been, directed to do. So I guess out of the $9 million, if there's funding coming from, for the architects, for the environmental work, things like that out of there, then obviously we would need something approved to keep on moving with it, unless we have enough in reserve.
Is that out of this budget or out of next year's?
Well,
contracts.
So basically, we've got expenses in 2025, 2026, and 2027. What I've got for a 2025 expense projection for design, demolition, and abatement is $986,000. So that's what we've got projected for 2025. That's what I was given by the architect.
Okay, so we do have something in the 2025 budget to proceed with what we're doing. Okay.
And my worry is that we proceed with demolition before we know that if renovation comes in at $9 million less, then maybe we reconsider. I hope we don't.
I mean, and we won't have any, I guess, quotes on renovation since we're not proceeding with that route. So.
Right, and that's fine. That's true. But that's less variable because the shell is there. The Stantec is going to be useful no matter what happens on that site, because whether we would renovate it, build new, or develop, that's information that we're going to need to have.
Yeah,
So
Stantec will be
Yeah.
inclusive to both. I will say the
Yeah.
amount of legwork that they are going to put into that build new option, I mean, will be fairly significant. And reversing and going back to the renovation, I mean, there will be another significant cost.
Yeah, there would have to
in
be a
trying to go back.
significant increase in cost from the preliminary estimate to make it worth changing course. Absolutely, because we will have a significant amount of money invested our progress up to that point.
And based off of preliminary estimates of the renovation, what we were getting, I mean, it was coming in higher than the build new.
Right.
So-
But if the build new comes in $6 million more than anticipated, and in a project that size, it is possible for that to happen. So,
There are always change orders, depending on what happens in any
right.
building.
But you're going to have, no, we're not going to delay it that much. If we have the estimate and we have the firm dollars and it's a good bid, we move ahead with that. Because you're right, change orders are a normal part of any construction process.
Are you privy to the timeline where we're at with the drawing and so forth?
So right now, we've kind of have the full block drawing. Once we nail down the blocking, they're going to start on schematic design, so kind of more of the blueprints per se, in layman terms. We are still on track. I forget the exact timeline, but I mean, we're still on track to get plans and things that we can bid out in early next year. To really have it nailed down. I mean, we won't know the exact price until the bids come out. So I will say if at that time we do choose that, hey, maybe the new build is slightly over, I don't know, I know you 6 million, but it's $1 million over, whatever the case may be at that time, we will already have been pretty far into the next year. And then in our agreement with the county, we're looking to be out come mid-2027, so we'd only have a year to try to regroup, get all the new contracts approved and things like that. So that could significantly impact timelines with the county.
But all the design is moving ahead with no delay.
All the design is moving ahead for build new.
Yeah.
Not anything with renovation.
Right.
Because that'd be additional.
And we want to move ahead. I'm hoping that everything checks out as planned, but I think it's just too big to risk.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Are we going to vote on the amendment?
Proper would be to vote on the amendment first.
Okay.
And then, once that's either up or down, then we'll either go on the original motion or the amended motion.
Okay, so we're going to vote on the amendment now.
Yeah, so my motion would be to delay the 9 million on the budget until we have a final design and actual estimates, so we have more firm numbers. And then it's still not going to be in stone, but it'll give us a more accurate idea. So that's...
If it's still possible to ask a question at this stage, when do we expect that to be at this point? Has that been established?
He just said early in the year.
Apologies.
Yep.
That'd be like first quarter of '26?
Right, and still prior to the June date that we need to have for borrowing, so.
And with no ramifications within your department?
Correct, yeah. I mean, we can, like I said, we can always amend a capital budget. I mean, it is a fair point that we try to do the best we can in terms of putting forward a capital budget that we think is going to be what we're actually going to spend for the year, but we can always amend a capital budget.
So all this would be doing is basically ensuring that no further monies, like demolition, could be done.
Well, if they can do the demolition for the 1 million that's already budgeted, but that would also then impact the design budget, and that would probably jeopardize them being able to finish the design, and that would be problematic. That would delay things even further, so. So I've made I propose my amendment, but if we would, in order to act on it, would require a second.
We didn't get a second, we discussed it a lot.
We did not get a second.
Have a second. Yeah, by rights, you're right. Although we haven't always had motions before we've discussed either tonight.
I'll second it.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any other comments before we take a vote? Okay. Take a roll call, please. Yep.
Morrow,
No.
Shuda,
Yes.
Keemer,
No.
Broderick,
No.
Christensen.
Okay, yes, so the amendment fails. We're back to the original motion to approve the budget as presented.
Yeah, there was no
Do
changes.
we have a motion?
We have a motion and a second,
so-
yeah.
All right, let's take a roll call
Shuda,
We're accepting, right?
for accepting the budget as presented.
Aye.
Keemer,
Aye.
Broderick, Christensen,
Aye.
Morrow.
Aye.
Shouldn't have closed my computer.
It's got more.
Yeah, we still got more to go. And it's only 8:35, not bad.
You want to see?
Yeah.
Number 7.
All right, item number 7, consideration of the budget amount for
Sorry.
common council
Sorry.
Miscellaneous expenses.
Expenses, I remembered, see?
I was trying to jump to the proper page.
Comptroller, do you want to?
Sure. So, and this was also talked about at Public Policy and General Government. And basically, one of the items that I'm looking for direction on is, right now we budget $5,122 for miscellaneous expenses for the alderpersons. And during the last budget cycle, I know the alderpersons graciously decided to reduce that line item to fund their raises. So I wanted to kind of just touch base to make sure we're all on the same page as far as what we're doing with the budget. You certainly don't have to reduce that line item again to fund the raises, for the 2026 budget. However, I wanted to see if that was something that you wanted to do, or if you wanted to keep that line item the same, or if, I don't think we need to increase that line item based on past spending and based on the conversation at Public Policy and General Government of that, basically it's just first come, first serve. If there was going to be a specific allocation for each alderperson, then maybe I'd say, okay, we need to make sure that we have enough, so that it's a reasonable number for each alderperson. But I think based on past performance, we could probably leave it at the 5,122. And I know it's not all utilized right now, but alderpersons can change, and common councils can change, and we could have a common council in the future that wants to be a little bit more aggressive in terms of spending those funds. So I think I'd be hesitant to cut it back further.
Right. So I think the other unknown is we don't know how many new alderpersons that are going on, and all of a sudden if you have 3 or 4 that are looking at going to the new training, that's already a chunk of change, so. All right.
Thank you, Chair. I just had a question. Come April, after the election, will all the alder people be on the same wage scale? I mean, because I know we had to kind of tier it, and I guess I don't really remember where we left off. Like, is there a point where all the alder people are paid the same amount, or is that just going to have to go step by step?
No, that's not what was approved, basically. Okay. So what was approved is that for the even districts, they'll be, once they're up for re-election, they'll be a little bit higher than the alderpersons in the odd districts.
Historically, it's kind of set at the beginning of their term, right? So when you run on your term, you know what you're going to get for your term.
You can't vote for a raise for yourself. So it doesn't take effect until the next election. So like if we voted now for a raise, it wouldn't take effect until like the next election.
Yeah,
for
correct.
each of us.
Correct. So, but basically what was approved is the even districts, since they came up later, they're going to leapfrog the odd districts a little bit, where I think right now the odd districts are getting paid more, and then the even districts will get paid more after the next election.
It evens out.
Yeah.
All right.
Motion to keep it the same?
Yep, committee, what are your wishes? Alder Morrow proposes to keep it the same. Do we have a second?
A second.
Second by Alder Broderick. Any other comments from the committee? Any from the public? Hearing none, we'll take our vote. All in favor of the motion to keep all their salaries the same?
Or the miscellaneous
The
budget?
miscellaneous.
For the miscellaneous budget.
Yeah.
Yeah. For the Alder's miscellaneous, Jesus, it's getting late. A lot of meetings today. But yeah, the miscellaneous budget at the same would signify by saying aye. Aye, and opposed would be no. And that passes. Next item on our agenda, we have item number 8. Approval of scope of services with AECOM to update our Clark Main traffic study.
That's Scott, or?
Yeah, it's Scott, typically, I don't know.
Well, I think Jared wrote the memo, right?
He's there, come on, one of you two. It's a song and dance.
Call on somebody.
All right.
His name's on the memo, but I actually wrote most of it. Let's just actually, no, he made it look really good. I just gave some of the history that he didn't otherwise have, so that's the truth to it. But yes, this is something that AECOM had otherwise done for us before. At that time, it was related to what we were doing with Business 51 and how the intersection's there. So if we ever wanted to implement changes, we needed to know that our plan for Business 51 was going to work with it. So we wanted to evaluate this concept that had come up before about two-waying the Clark Main. Within that analysis, they identified that from inclusive of Division Street and everything to the east, it really doesn't work out well without purchasing a whole lot of real estate, making a lot of changes. Very expensive to do is the only way to make that feasible. However, surprising, I think even to staff, is going the other way through downtown, things actually start to work. So we had them evaluate that a little bit more to see how that might kind of flush itself out. Since then, of course, we've come up with a lot of, different ideas. Now we've got a Strong's Union potential connection, through there, and there are other things happening. And while it's still relying somewhat on a crystal ball, some things at least have come more into focus to what we otherwise have. One of the big ones, of course, is, when we did that original study, Century wasn't operating out of their downtown facility. Now their parking lot is overflowing. And how would that otherwise impact some of those things? Because we based it on the numbers that we had identified at the time, as well as some projections thereof. We really like to go back and revisit that, get some new counts down there, see how the traffic is otherwise flowing today, then look more towards the types of developments and more specifically than the sizes of which that we now have a better handle of how, say, Shopko is going to be developed and some of the other changes there to see how that otherwise work, and then just revisit that to see how that two-weighing study work. Does it still work? Is it still feasible? What does it take to do that? Is it still generally feasible to do? So that's essentially where, I don't know if, Dr. Kibble, if you wanted to add more to it, but it's just taking another look, knowing more about what we know today to see if it's still valuable. So as we look through the downtown and additional plans, we can start to plan in the direction that we otherwise would want to go, which actually even ties into the targeted downtown master plan, like eliminating some of that concrete, the roadway for Water Street, there to utilize that for developable space. All those things are starting to tie together. This is what gives us the transportation component to see that we can hopefully accomplish those things with a little more clarity.
Well, and even the extension of moving Crosby and West coming down, and I mean, there's a number of variables that are changing there, so. Committee, motion, if we can, then we can start discussion.
I'll move approval of the scope of services with AECOM.
We have a motion to approve by Kamer, a second by Morrow. Yeah, and most of that's in my district. I brought this up a while ago. There's so many changes, and I think I brought it up initially when we started Business 51, just because I wanted to make sure they played nice and they're major thoroughfares. And all of a sudden now we have another major artery being created with Union Strongs that will affect traffic flow. The original one had Smith being extended through the Associated Bank parking lot. That's probably not, I mean, who knows what's going to happen there. We have the whole Shopko redevelopment. We have some idea now where all of that's at. I think there's more information, and I think this fits right along with my opening remarks that we got to make sure to get information and base our decisions on something. We also have to make a decision fairly quickly on when we're going to change from one-way to two-way on that Union Strongs connection, because Union's two-way all the way, and Strongs is one-way as of right now. The other thing that you noticed in the memo too was just the city and county transition and what they're doing, and Strongs will actually impact. Strongs is one of the major thoroughfares going by the courthouse, so there's a lot of things to take a look at, and I just think it behooves us to make sure we make a good decision with all of that. So, Alder Kimmer.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question for Director Badoon. In relate to the scope of services here, would the new traffic counts be contained within that, I guess, west of Division area? And if so, how is it DOT that does traffic counts periodically? Like, how often do those come?
So the answer to your first question, yeah. So basically everything downtown, the intersections, signalized intersections, we would do counts on. Yes, the DOT does it. Typically every 3 years they do traffic counts on major corridors. In this case, we have the equipment that we will do the traffic counts ourselves. We have 4 Mile Vision cameras. We collect the video data, send it into Mile Vision. They have an algorithm that within a few hours spits out all the data, pedestrians, bicyclists, large vehicles, small vehicles, all their turning movements and whatnot. So we'll have to provide that data, but we will get new counts to make sure we're using the latest information.
That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from the committee? Comments? Anything from the public? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor of approving that study by AECOM to take a look at our traffic on the downtown area, that would indicate, all in favor of that would indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed would be no. And so that passes as well. That gets us to claims paid. Comptroller, any things that you want to highlight?
So just a couple of large, actually pretty large capital projects in terms of for road construction. So you'll notice those on the list. And also there was the purchase of a new garbage truck in capital. And then you also had a fairly large check for professional services for Business 51 as we proceed through the Business 51 design for next year. So.
Okay. Any questions from the committee? Any questions or concerns from the public? Hearing none, all in favor of approving?
Need a motion first.
Oh, that's right.
Move to approve claims paid.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Broderick and a second by Kamer. All in favor of approving the claims paid would indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, and opposed would be no. That takes us to item number 10, adjourning into closed session, approximately at 7:25.
So moved.
Mountain time? Maybe. Still late. We have a motion by Morrow. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Kamer. That's pursuant to statutes 19.85, parent 1, parent E, deliberating and negotiating the purchase of the public property. So that's a roll call.
Kamer.
Aye.
Broderick.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
Morrow. Aye. Shuda.
Aye.
Okay, 8:45. We're going into closed session, and we will be reconvening afterwards for possible action.